Hi, my name is Dr. Kathleen King. I'm a physical therapist and a transformational teacher and guide. I work with people who are struggling with chronic illness and trauma patterns, and they're wanting to reclaim their life. The purpose of this video is to tell you my story. I had the perfect setup for chronic illness. I had the high ACE childhood trauma score. I grew up in a lot of violence. I grew up in poverty. I grew up in illiteracy. And yet I was able to overcome all of those odds and eventually get my doctoral degree and be successful. And I thought I had escaped that statistic. I developed kind of a split personality where I was a high achiever, a go-getter. I never talked about how I grew up. I pretended I wasn't from that place. I became everything that I thought I should be. But that divide inside, it was harboring a big secret, one that I wasn't ready to address until my nervous system had its perfect storm. That perfect storm started in 2003 when I was traveling in South America. I ended up getting some parasite infections, having some trauma, and ended up in a hospital. I ended up very sick and my nervous system cracked. And those memories of fear, of abandonment, of trauma, they came surfacing back up. And it was time to start facing them. Except I didn't know how. Eventually I suppressed them again, and I went on to become a physical therapist and work for many years. I worked with the brain, I worked with the nervous system even, I worked with chronic pain. I learned a lot about the brain as it relates to pain. And then my perfect storm again happened when I got into a dysfunctional relationship and started doing things that I would say were out of my true self alignment. I was working way too hard and I wasn't dealing with my reality, that I was living out of alignment. And eventually I started showing symptoms of Lyme disease and chronic fatigue, except at the time I didn't know what was happening. I just knew my body was not doing what I wanted it to do. Eventually I had to stop working. I tried to fix myself by reorienting my identity into something that I thought should help me heal. There was something wrong and I was going to fix myself and I was going to change my whole life to do it. So I got married. I joined a fundamental religion that was out of my alignment. And I decided, well, maybe if I had children, maybe that would help. So I had 2 kids. And after the birth of my second child, that's when things went dark. My body completely failed me. All of those unconscious memories of my childhood came flooding back up. And it was really time to deal. There was nowhere to go, no work to go to, no relationship to change. I was stuck at home in my mind with the hell of my childhood. And for years, it felt like nothing was happening. My body stayed sick. I went from doctor to doctor. I tried everything. We spent every cent we had trying to fix me. And I couldn't get fixed. And at the same time, I was remembering more and more and learning how to be in a body that was scared and full of a lot of emotions that were uncomfortable. I learned how to sit with myself, yet at the same time, I didn't know how to heal because I was fighting my reality. I thought once I get better, once I fix this illness, everything will be okay and I can get back to living that life I want. In case you were wondering what I was dealing with, my diagnoses list ranged from chronic Lyme disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, parasite issues, postural hypotension, mold toxicity, adrenal issues, chronic PTSD, anxiety, insomnia, panic attacks, all sorts of endocrine issues. There were so many things I honestly can't even remember right now what all labels were given to me. The point is I was sick. I remember that if I were to take a shower, I might not be able to do much for a couple of days. I hit a low point where things were so bad. I remember being in a dark, quiet room because I couldn't handle light, I couldn't handle sound, and I had full-time care for my 2 kids. That was a low point because I realized I was missing their life, and despite everything I was doing, every treatment I was trying, all the money we were spending, I wasn't really getting better. And I didn't understand why. And then a switch flipped in my brain. I remembered a little bit what I had learned as a physical therapist about how pain is regulated in the brain. And I wondered, if pain is regulated in the brain, what about infection? What about the endocrine system? And I realized, oh my gosh, of course it is. It's regulated in the brain. And if someone with chronic pain can self-regulate their emotional state and heal, then maybe someone with Lyme disease and with all of the other diagnoses I had. And that set me on a new journey to really understanding the brain in a whole new way. I started doing functional neurology exercises and brain retraining programs such as the Dynamic Neural Retraining System, also known as DNRS. Over time, I developed my own program which combines what I understood with brain retraining, functional neurology, somatic movement exercises, and energy medicine. And I created a foundation for change and transformation. When I really started to reorient my entire focus to regulating my internal state rather than fighting infections, my body started to shift. It might seem crazy to some of you that infections can be healed without medicine, but it's true. Our immune system is quite smart, and it's possible for the immune system to find and remove infections from the body without medicines. Many people have done that, and the research is showing that it's possible. In addition to infection, there are so many other things that my body needed to learn how to regulate. And by regulating my own internal state and focusing on creating an electromagnetic frequency that was full of the most healing biochemical cocktail you can imagine, I created a different reality. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope that it helps you to embrace the magical mystery of what's possible for you too.